Hey, welcome back to Rams Up, everybody. Ian and I went over the keys to victory for this Rams Saints game, Week 9 matchup at SoFi Stadium Sunday. Scott and Forbode and I will be back tomorrow morning with our Saturday morning roundtable talking about this game as well. And before I get started, at the end here, I have my post Week 8 power rankings and my Week 9 game picks. And I have to tell you, I recorded that before this Thursday night game, the Ravens Saints, and I picked the Ravens to win. But one of my bets, man, I got suckered in by the Dolphins. I took the Dolphins in the 7.5 points. So, yeah, not the best pick there. And so just to be aware of that. And the Ravens, man, 3-5, and could they be in my top 12 in a week or two? They very well might be. They're better than a lot of teams, I think, that are better than record-wise, that's for sure. And speaking of the AFC, it's a bit of a mess as far as the playoff race goes. It's going to be really exciting. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. In the NFC, I'm going to tell you, I think the playoff field is set. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me. A lot of you think the Rams are still not a lock. None of these teams are real locks here, but I'm going to tell you right now who the NFC playoff field, who's going to make that field. It's going to be the Packers and the Lions in the NFC North. The Eagles and Bucks will win their divisions, and then the Rams, Niners, and Seahawks will all make it as well. And, think about this. Who are you get past those 7 teams, who else is deserving? Who else do you really feel comfortable is going to make a run here? The Commanders, Cowboys, Falcons, Vikings, Bears, I suppose, but I feel pretty comfortable with taking these 7 teams as my playoff field, and we're not even really halfway through the season. So I feel pretty good about that. Now, let's get to some more interesting stuff, hopefully. Players on the move. Roger McCreary coming over from the Titans to the Rams, the cornerback. Ian talked about this extensively. I'll have some additional thoughts here in a few seconds, a couple minutes down the road here. And then Keon White, the defensive end, to the 49ers. And we never like to see our divisional rivals improve. I'm not sure how much the 49ers improved here, though. It might actually be, I'm not going to use the word desperation, but, trying to improve a really dreadful pass rush at this point. So maybe Robert Saleh can make it work for Keon White. He's a second-round pick out of Georgia Tech, had 1 sack in his rookie year, and then he had 4 sacks in weeks 1 and 2 of the 2024 season, but only 1 more over the rest of the season, and none thus far this year. So, hey, you add a decent player to the mix. That's always a good thing, but this isn't, I don't think it's going to be a big move on the 49ers' behalf. We'll have to see. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. And then a wide receiver, Tyler Scott, to the Rams practice squad. Now, Scott was a 2023 4th-round pick by the Bears out of Cincinnati. So he went from the Bearcats to the Bears and eventually released, signed to the Colts practice squad, released, signed to the Seattle practice squad just a few weeks ago, and then promptly released. And I'm wondering if this is as much about intel on the Seahawks as anything else. Got to be a little bit of that at work here, don't you think? He's 5'10", 182 pounds, 18 receptions for 173 yards over his career. And, how much is this tied to intel? How much of it is it tied to Tutu Atwell being hurt? How much of it is just the Rams bolstering their practice squad a little bit with a wide receiver? And now, Tutu Atwell being out, the only reason, it would be tied to that, we would find out real quickly, is if Scott is elevated for the Saints game. But I don't expect that to happen. I think something else is at work here. I think it's a little bit of intel and just bolstering that practice squad. But we'll see. I'll talk about how, what changes we might see in the wide receiver room here in a second. I'll save that for next. And news and notes, more on the tush push. Okay, so the NFL had said they're going to come down on the Eagles. They are not going to let them get away with this early movement. And it has not happened. We've seen it week in and week out. It's very difficult to detect slightly early movement by an offensive line. Okay, I get it. In most plays, it's not a big deal, not a big advantage. But in the tush push, it is a big advantage. And that's another reason why they maybe just need to get rid of this play. And then on top of that, you have this play against the Giants where Jalen Hurts, I got a snapshot of it on the YouTube channel here, is reaching out, extending the ball, and it gets ripped loose. Giants defender runs down the field with the ball, and they blow it dead. Kind of reminiscent of what happened with Jared Verse and the Ravens, right? Very similar play. The whistle isn't blown. The defender has the ball, is running down the field, and then they blow the whistle, call forward progress, bring it back. So the Eagles getting away with two things here: early movement on a regular basis, and then in this case, could have been a big play for the Giants, but it was not. So this tush push just has to go. We're seeing it. I'm feeling stronger and stronger about that position as we move on. If the refs are unwilling or unable to call this early movement, therefore giving the Eagles a big advantage on short yardage plays, got to get rid of it. And is there another trade coming for the Rams? I saw some discussion on this. Brian Thomas, a wide receiver. I'm not a big fan of that. I mean, I'd love to have the guy, but what do you got to give up to bring in a promising young receiver who has the dropsies, by the way? We saw it against the Rams. He had a couple of plays where I don't know if I qualify him as drops, but big catches that he could have made, but he did not. I'm not feeling it for that. Interior offensive line was another thought, and I just think Dotson and Avila are playing well enough. Coleman Shelton, Rams love him in the interior there. Could they improve one of those spots? It'd be really difficult. Maybe at the center spot, but I don't see the Rams doing that. What about kicker? Now, if Joshua Carty struggles again against the Saints, the trading deadline's Tuesday. Is that right? Tuesday? I could see that happening. And Tom Brady, how about Tom Brady on McVay and the Rams? He was a guy that it was very easy to dislike during his playing days. The moments he had against the Rams and the way he carried himself on the field, I'll just come right out and say it. Did not like the guy. Did not like him. Hate's a very strong word, but he was not a player that I enjoyed watching, and I always rooted against him. Now, I kind of flipped that, right? Me and my special assistant were talking about this. I love the guy now. Post-career, he's a great commentator, great analyst, funny guy, and he kind of likes the Rams, I think. And he called the Colts out as the best team in the NFL, grudgingly. And he also said how much he loves the Rams and McVay, especially in November and December. So, hey, maybe I'm on Team Brady these days. And I saw another trade possibility, Breece Hall, apparently on the trading block. And someone said Saints and Cardinals made sense. And I'm sorry, it makes no sense to me for two teams that are going nowhere, trading for Breece Hall, playing the long game maybe, giving up draft picks for a running back. I'm not feeling it. The only way a Breece Hall trade makes sense is to a contender who has running back issues. Kind of obvious to me. And one other trade popped up that I saw just this morning, the Eagles possibly making a trade for Myles Garrett. Now, he's got that giant contract, but there's always ways to work with that. Apparently, the Eagles made a play for him early in the year, before the season, couldn't get it done. Then he signed the contract, and that would be a game changer. I mean, I think the Eagles have issues on offense and defense, and I think adding Myles Garrett to that defense would be a bit of a game changer for really shake up the NFC, that's for sure. Now, PFF grades, highest rated Rams through 8 weeks on offense, Puka, Stafford, Devontae, Dotson, and Avila. Devontae and Avila kind of surprised me. Devontae has had some catches that he should have made. And Avila, basically, was he benched? Was he banged up? I'm not sure, but he's grading out pretty well. And then on defense, Jared, Byron Young, Puna, D. Will, and Quentin Lake. And what surprised me about this is, it's easy to not be unaware of the contributions a guy like Puna makes play by play as you're watching the game. But we know Braden Fisk is not a stud against the run, far from it. And we know Kobe Turner that's not necessarily his strength. Meanwhile, the Rams' run defense has really improved. So got to hand it to Puna Ford, maybe, right? And then D. Will, he had some rough patches there, but I think he's made up for it in the last 2 or 3 games, and he has graded out overall pretty well. Other than that, no real surprises there. Injury report, the Saints injury report on the YouTube channel. I'm displaying it for those of you on the audio only. The big notes here are the 2 running backs, Kamara and Neal. Everybody on this list, by the way, is limited, and I would expect to play. But Kamara is a big deal because if you're starting a rookie quarterback and your stud running back is out, your release valve is out, and a guy that can pick up blitzes and such, that would be could be a disaster for the Saints as far as their young quarterback is concerned. Olave is also on this list. He's obviously one of the best wide receivers in the league, and their big return guy, Shaheed, is also limited. But I have a feeling they're all going to go. And on the Rams side, just 4 guys listed: Havenstein, Nakua, Kinchins, and D. Will, and I would expect that they would all go. Darius, if he couldn't go, well, let's talk about our players to watch here in a second because it kind of plays into his availability. And it'd be big, Warren McClendon has played well, but to get Havenstein back 100%, that's a pretty big deal. And Puka Nakua, come on, man, is he the best wide receiver in the league? Very well could be. And my players to watch, and kind of gets back into that Tyler Scott discussion, Tutu Atwell being out. Let's talk about Jordan Whittington first, a guy that I really had high hopes for, and it really hasn't played out. He's had a couple moments, good blocker. He's had some bad plays, and he hasn't had a lot of big plays. They get him involved in this screen and jet sweep game more than they would Mumpfield. I think Mumpfield more of a traditional route runner. But I think I just sense the Rams have big plans for Mumpfield. Maybe not this week, but it very well could be this week with Atwell out. My prediction is Mumpfield is going to ease into that number 3 wide receiver role over the next 4 weeks. That's my prediction. So let's see what happens with Mumpfield. As I already predicted, he gets his second NFL touchdown this week. And then there's Roger McCreary. And this is what's interesting about him. There's a lot of things at play here. D. Will being banged up a little bit. So maybe McCreary gets out there as a, in the mix as one of their cornerbacks. He also could ease into a backup role for Quentin Lake. McVay talked about this, a guy that can play that star role, nickelback role, and Quentin Lake never comes off the field. And maybe we need to get him off the field a little bit. It's a long season. So what we could see in this game is McCreary rotating in on Quentin Lake's behalf, or if the Rams get this game under control in the 4th quarter, McCreary takes over and plays that position outright. Or maybe they just mix him in here and there. The problem is, with a new cornerback, missed assignments, breakdowns can be really costly, especially with this wide receiver group, Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, and such. So, he may not play at all in the secondary. It could be just a special teams addition for now. I think it's going to be a little bit of everything. He's going to get in the mix a little bit and possibly spell Quentin Lake for a series or 2, or at least some snaps here or there. But more out of curiosity, what is McCreary's role going to be in this game and moving forward? We'll find out soon enough. We'll learn a little bit about that in this game. Or you know what? Maybe we will learn nothing, depending on how comfortable they are fitting him into the secondary, having just joined the team a few days ago. So we'll get into those power rankings and Game picks. Remember, the Dolphin Ravens pick was made before this Thursday night game, but I left it in. Full disclosure, I'm not going to change. If I get stuff wrong, I'm going to leave it in there. Just not a bad pick this week. Pretty horrible bad pick by yours truly as far as the Dolphins covering, but hey, it is what it is. Time for my power rankings post week 8. And before I get into it, I'm going to run down a bunch of teams that I have in the green room because I tell you, this is probably the most confusing year that I've ever encountered as far as trying to rack and stack these teams, especially in that like 5 through 15 area. And I'm going to run off a bunch of teams that are outside looking in my so-called green room, outside the top 12. As you know, if you're new, I don't go 1 through 32. I just focus on the 12 teams that I think are the cream of the crop. And here are the teams just outside. The Jags, 4-3, and I had them floating around at the bottom of my top 12 for a couple weeks, just really inconsistent, and have a lot of respect for them. But, what the Rams did to them was kind of alarming if you're a Jags fan, but still a contender for sure. The 49ers, had them in the top 10. I think I had them in the top 6 or 7 at one point. They're 5-3 now, but they just looked really average last week against the Texans. And, dealing with a lot of injuries, I get it. And I think if they get healthy, they can make a really strong run. Got a weak schedule as well. But they're outside looking in. The Texans, a team that I had, I think, in the top 5 or 6 before the season started, and starting to come on a little bit, 3-4, and they have a shot, I think, at making a playoff run here. Then you have the Commanders at 3-5. Maybe they're not worth mentioning, but I think it seems like they've had some tough draws early in the season, but they have not risen to the occasion. They're probably at the bottom of the screen room, to be honest with you. The Bears, 4-3, showing signs of slowly developing into a decent team under Ben Johnson's leadership. I don't think it's going to be this year, though. And then I have the Ravens in my green room at 2-5. There's no way I can put them in the top 12, but I have a sneaky suspicion they are going to make a run for that AFC North title because the Steelers are floundering a little bit. Steelers could take another one on the chin this week, and I'm just not impressed with anybody in that division at all. So let's get into the top 12 and we'll start with the bottom 4 of the top 12. I have the Broncos at number 12, and they've been floating around in there 10, 11, 12, really on the strength of an incredible defense, just getting to quarterbacks week in and week out. The Chargers are back in my top 10 at number 11, a team that's a little up and down as well, but got to give them credit. They're dealing with injuries too, and they should get another win this week, taking on the Titans, who are undergoing a fire sale. And my number 10 team, the Patriots, coming on strong. I think they will get another win. Well, I don't know. It's a tough game. Falcons, I haven't talked about the Falcons at all, but another team that's kind of up and down. But the Patriots are on a roll. And looking like a playoff. The AFC is much more unsettled when it comes to the playoff picture. A lot of teams kind of jostling in that wild card pecking order, and even some divisional championships up in the air for sure. And my number 9 team, the Bills, and I still think, going to sound kind of odd here. Right now, they're my 9th ranked team, but I still think they're the odds-on favorite to win that conference. And it may not make sense to you, but the snapshot right now, that's where the Bills belong. My number 8 team, the Bucks, a team that has had a couple blips on the radar, but when they are playing at their best, really impressive. Baker Mayfield and that offense, and Mika Egbuka, what a great wide receiver. He is what I thought the Packers wide receiver over there was going to be in his rookie year. His name, I can't think of it right now. That's how much of Egbuka has separated himself from the other wide receivers. Can't even think of the guy's name. But Tampa Bay going to win that division for sure. They're going to be one of the top 4 seeds in the NFC. And the Seahawks, I have them at number 7, right behind the Rams. Rams at 6, Seahawks at 7. I think the Seahawks are getting a little bit more love than they deserve, and I'm not downplaying what they've accomplished. But man, those Rams-Seahawks clashes are going to be very impactful, to say the least, because while they're playing each other, the 49ers will probably be picking up a couple easy wins over that same period. And I don't think either one of these teams is out of it if they get swept. I'm predicting, I think a split is probably more likely. So we'll see how that goes. So Seahawks at 7, Rams at 6, the Eagles at 5, and another team that there's been times where you just kind of like, this is the defending Super Bowl champion. And then last week they finally get Barkley rolling against a divisional rival. But I don't know, man. I just don't think this Eagles team is in the same place as they were late last year for sure. But that can change. It's we're basically in the midseason, right? So teams can get better. Teams can get on a roll. We know all about that, being a Rams fan, right? Being Rams fans. And my top 4, the Chiefs suddenly 5-3. Man, I don't think any of us were counting them out, but we were really wrinkling our eyebrow at the Kansas City Chiefs. And then there they are back in the hunt and playing really good football. Took care of the Commanders, dispatched the Commanders pretty easily. And then the Packers, only one loss. They got one loss and one tie. Man, big battle going on there in the NFC North, because right above them are the Lions, and another team that, you look at these teams at their best. The 3 teams that have really impressed me are the Lions, Packers, and Bucks. But the Packers are my number 3 team, and the Lions are number 2. And then there's my number 1 team, the Colts, and just a solid, balanced, even-keeled roster. Really good leadership, great coach, Jonathan Taylor on a roll. But I'll say this about the Colts, after seeing them somewhat firsthand against the Rams. They're my number 1 team, but I really don't think they have what it takes to win the AFC. That's all I'm going to say about that. If any Colts fans stumble across this, going to take some darts, I'm sure. But I'm just being honest with you. I think the quarterbacks make such a big difference in the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and I've always loved Daniel Jones, much more than most anyways, but just not feeling it for them to make a run in the playoffs. Although if they have their number 1 seed and home field advantage, maybe they'll prove me wrong if they have that type of path to the Super Bowl. Now, my Rams Up Straight Up picks for Week 9. What do I got here? So far this year, well, to rehash last year, I outpaced Pete Prisco. I was right 68% of the time. Pete was right 64% of the time, so I had a pretty good margin. Last week, we both went 9-4. We disagreed on 2 games, and one went his way, and one went my way. So we both went 9-4, so I still remain 1 game behind Pete, and I'm going to share here with you my game picks, my Rams Up Straight Up picks, and the bets of the week. And for you, those of you on the YouTube channel, I'll just let you soak that in. For those of you on the podcast, audio only, I am taking the Ravens over the Dolphins, the Bears over the Bengals. There's some tough games to pick here. Lions will prevail at home over the Vikings. Packers should have no issues with the Panthers. Broncos Texans, one of the more interesting games. 2 teams that have been playing really well. This could be, if the Texans win this game, they'll really be back in the hunt. And man, I don't pay as much attention to the seeding fight in the AFC, but I would think that this game could be very important down the road as far as tiebreakers and such, assuming they're both in the mix at that point. The Patriots on a real good roll, and the Falcons, another up and down team. I'll take the Patriots at home. The 49ers and Giants, I was really torn on this one. With Cam Skattebo in the game, I'm taking the Giants. With him out, I'm leaning the 49ers. But I think this is maybe a bad place for the 49ers. Sometimes when the Giants leave, would I go so far as to say Cam Skattebo is their heart and soul of that Giants team, and they lose him. Sometimes the team really step up and rally in the absence of such a player. But I'm going to go with the 49ers. I think they're the better team, but I will not be surprised at all if the Giants pull the minor upset here. Colts at the Steelers. The Steelers are another team that's really floundering, and I never got the love they were getting. Colts on the road. It'll be a tough game, but I take the Colts in that one. I think everybody will. Chargers at the Titans. Chargers should pick up a real cheap win, as will the Rams at home against the Saints. Saints making a quarterback change. Sometimes that creates some issues for a defense, but in this case, I think the Rams will get to the quarterback quite a bit. Jags at Raiders. I'm going with the Jags. This game's kind of a toss-up in my mind. Jags, another team that just up and down, cannot figure them out. And then the Chiefs at Bills, probably the game of the week in a lot of people's minds. Two teams that could face off later in the season in the playoffs, in the AFC Conference Championship even. But I will take the Bills primarily because they're at home, and I think they're overall the better team. Seahawks at the Commanders. Another one, Jaden Daniels is supposed to play right. I'm kind of basing it on that. Seahawks have been so good on the road, though, so this one's a real toss-up. Don't feel strong about it, but I went with the Commanders. And then I think the Cowboys at home against the Cardinals. Cardinals are much better than their record. I think we talked about this. They lost 5 games by a total of 13 points after winning their opening 2. So they're going to come in, and this could be a really fun game, a really high-scoring game, but I went with the Cowboys. And my bets of the week, I like the Dolphins in the 7.5 points. If you haven't figured it out, I'm a sucker for those 6.5, 7.5 point spreads. I am taking the Texans, and they are slight underdogs to the Broncos. I think they're going to cover. And then the Falcons, even though I like the Patriots in that game, the Falcons defense, they've had a couple of blips on the radar where they did not play well. But if they do play well, they'll make this a fairly low-scoring game, I think. And to keep it close, I'll take the Falcons in the 5.5. And I'm taking the Bills money line over the Chiefs and the Cowboys to cover that -2.5, even though I think it will be a close game. And so far this year, last week was bad. I went 0 for 2, but overall, I'm doing pretty well. And just a reminder, we are teaming up with MyBookie. You new users, log on to at mybookie.website/joinwithramsup. Use the RamsUp promo code up to $500 fully covered in your bets. Can't beat that deal. And my piece of advice, 2 pieces of advice I like to share. One, bet responsibly. Throw a little bit of money at a game or 2 for fun. Make sure your groceries aren't depending on the outcome. And the second thing is maybe this week, hey, let's say do the opposite of me. I got 5 bets on the table there. Maybe you just flip it and do the opposite. And maybe it'll pay off for you. I seem to do well every other week, so your guess is as good as mine. Are you betting I'm spot on this week, or are you betting I'm full of it? That's kind of the decision you're going to have to make. Make that decision on mybookie.website/joinwithramsup and use that promo code out here.